Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Bronxville Planning Board, our July meeting, and this is the last one. We take a recess next month, but we've got a full plate tonight, so thank you all for tuning in. The first order of business is the reading of the minutes up for approval from June 8th. Did everyone get a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Any comments or amendments or nothing?
No.
Okay. Can I hear a motion to?
So move.
So moved. Thank you, James.
Yep.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So the minutes passed. We had two items that were postponed till the September meeting. So I'm going to move right on to the 65 Pondfield Road applicant, personal service spa on the second floor. Is someone from the application, would you like to speak? Thank you. Just come to the podium and announce your name and give us your talk.
Okay. Good evening. First of all, thank you all for your time. My name is Monica Zubrowski, and I am the applicant for 65 Pondfield Road, Suite 5, which is an approximately 450 square foot space, which I'm looking to rent in order to perform beauty services. I'm a licensed esthetician, and I specialize in French skincare treatments. So the space would be used to offer luxury facials to my clients. Treatments are approximately 1 to 2 hours, and I would be using the space as an office as well to conduct virtual skincare consultations for my clients all over the US. The space is in great condition. I would only be looking to paint and fix existing cabinet doors, and I really believe this would be a fantastic addition to the Bronxville community and would really add to its charm. These treatments are not offered in Westchester, and I know the community would be really excited for the skincare services that I'd be offering. Again, thank you.
Great. You come all the way out here from Forest Hills?
I did,
Wow.
yes.
Okay.
I currently work in Westchester in Rye.
Any questions, gentlemen?
I had a question, just curious. How do your treatments differ from other types of skincare treatments? Because we do have some salons and
Right.
spa treatment
Right.
businesses in the village already, so I'm just curious what the...
Yeah, so I specialize in a skincare brand called Biologique Recherche. It's a French skincare line. It's used all around the world, and I've already communicated with them, and they know I'm applying for this space, and there's no one within this range. So it's very exclusive, and they don't allow someone to open within a certain distance to be fair to their companies.
So do you sell products in this space?
Yes.
Okay.
So it would be a very limited amount of hand-picked products that go well with this skincare line.
And before, okay, well, thank you, Monica. Thank you. Paul, maybe you want to comment on the only issue before us is the conversion of office space to personal services. Is that within the code, Paul Taft?
Yes, it is permitted use in that space.
Okay, thank you. I suppose we should open this up to the public. If there's anyone here from the public who would like to say a word or two. Seeing none, I'll close the public meeting. Gentlemen, do we have any thoughts on this application or objections? Or
Personal services is the way all space in Bronxville seems to be heading, whatever it's currently classified. So this is not unusual for us, correct?
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, then, how do we feel? Would someone like to make a motion to approve this application?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Larry.
I'll second.
Michael, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Good luck to you, Ms. Zabrowski.
Are you saying we need it?
That's all right.
Thank you, good luck.
Great, thank you. The next item on the agenda for tonight is 17 Greenfield Road, an exterior alteration where they want to remove and replace a roof structure. If someone is here from the applicant, you'd like to speak, just come up to the, tell us your name and,
My name is Nick Faustini. I'm an architect
okay.
for the Aldebott residence. We are proposing, shall I run through the application?
Yes, please.
So we're proposing a new roof over the house, as well as 2 small second-floor additions. The house has a 70s-style roof to it currently, and our client was looking for a more traditional-style gable roof. This is the geometry of the existing roof. You'll see the elevations on the bottom. Oh, I'm sorry.
Laser pointer.
Oh, thank you. So you'll see this roof shape now that's on the house. Again, we're looking for something a little bit more traditional. Right now, the first floor, the roof comes down to the top of the windows, so they wanted to have these dormers really fill the second floor. Again, more traditional, like the houses adjacent on each side. We are filling in this little area and this little corner and that little corner. It works out to about 80 square feet of addition. There's no change to the site plan or footprint of the house. These are just some technical drawings. This is the proposed house design. So again, second floor with the traditional style gable roof. We are changing these existing dormers. These are existing dormers that are over the garage with gable roofs over them. And this is that more traditional style. We are extending the chimney just to be slightly higher than the ridges required by code. New windows. We're presenting to the DRC and the planning board because we're altering more than 50% of the facade of the house as a result of this design. One of my associates presented to the DRC last week, and they had some general aesthetic comments and questions. We did refile on Friday in an effort to address those comments, and I think this PDF may include some of those additional requirements. They had asked for some questions about the type of trim, whether it be wood or stucco trim. We're proposing wood trim around the windows. They asked about the type of just technical details, like what type of flashing we would have. We were proposing copper flashing, copper drip edges over the windows. We dimensioned some of the trim profiles. They had asked about the type of stone, or just for us to specifically indicate that we'd match the stone on the chimney as well as the mortar. They had asked about the type of steps or the front entrance, which is existing bluestone, which will remain existing bluestone. They asked us to dimension this panel detail around the front door, which is dimensioned here and detailed. Forgive me. They also asked us to show the actual increase in height from the existing roof to the proposed ridge. So the existing roof, this is the existing ridge line, and this is a proposed ridge line, and there's a difference of about 4 feet. It's still within the code requirements for the zoning code. If we can flip towards the end of the PDF, there's a section profile that shows the next one, I believe. So if you see, the dashed line represents the existing roof line,
Right.
and that's the proposed roof line, and that delta is 4 feet. Again, the idea here is to go for a more traditional style home that fits within the character of the neighborhood. We do have another slide. We were also asked to see if we can provide a sense of scale between the 2 adjacent properties. So what I did is take a Google Earth view, and then I projected the scales for the adjacent properties. I did take them from Google Street View. They're perspectives, so they're not 100% scale, but I tried to do a flat projection, and I scaled the doors to get you like a comparative, let's say street view, to what our house would be versus the 2 adjacent neighbors. The red line represents the existing ridge line, and what you see is the proposed design. There is a difference in elevation from 21 Greenfield to 17 to 15, just because the street starts to descend in that direction.
Right.
Again, if you look at the footprints of the house, the footprint of our house isn't going to change. It's just a matter of changing the roof line to be something a little bit more contextual.
Questions?
The 4-foot difference, just appears somewhat dramatic when you contrast it with the existing. And it looked like from the comparison that, and you're having to make a judgment on this, but it seems like apples to apples, it's slightly taller than the other two houses on either side. Is that, it's a guesstimate, but do you think that's accurate?
I would say it could be slightly taller, maybe by a foot, because the grade is dropping down, but like 17 versus 21, like they're looking like they're the same height. Again, this is a perspective.
I know it's approximate.
So like its profile in flat elevation would be much taller. So it's approximate. I would say these two are similar. I think they are slightly taller than 15 Greenfield.
21 is pretty tall.
Well, I think we actually like 21 a lot. The idea was to try to do something very similar, but not identical, of course.
Mimic,
So,
right.
So we liked the gable that 21 had, and we like, because it actually lent itself, because 15 is also beautiful, but it lent itself better to our footprint. And we just wanted to follow. A lot of the houses along Greenfield have dormers at the 3rd level. So again, the idea was to try to keep it, in context with the neighborhood.
And is the desire for the additional house, the additional height, more aesthetic or more to have more usable space, or both you can,
It's an unfinished attic space. It would be nice to have. There's absolutely no attic space now. It's just this really tiny, like 2-foot attic. So we do have a walk-up attic here. It's going to be unfinished. It's not finished as part of this application. They would like it for storage, but really, again, the driving factor was aesthetics, just to have something that looks a little bit more impressive, more timeless.
Great.
Are the solar panels staying or going?
I'm sorry?
Are the solar panels staying or going?
We were planning on repositioning them on the new pitch of the roof. So they are staying, and they're on the rear of the house. So they're on the rear. We're just going to tilt them up higher. So we were proposing to repurpose them on the same plane, so it won't be in the front.
They won't be in the front, and they're still going to be on under the required code, the 2
Yes.
feet.
Yeah, we weren't going to change the amount. The plane of the roof is essentially the same, just tilted
Gotcha.
higher.
Is that part of this application, the solar
No,
panels? or-
it's on the drawings just to reinstall them on that rear plane of the roof, but we didn't propose any like new solar panels or anything like that.
Yeah, I think we should see a new application
With a solar
for the
panel?
for the solar panels.
Well,
Because I don't know, it just seems like, especially with the new solar ordinance, that we should review it under the new guidelines.
It's a good point taken. That's the bulk of your report, right, Nick?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Paul, can I get you up here to talk about a couple of things that are going on? One, the raising of the roof, the height restriction. We're still within the FAR ratio as far as I understand it?
Yes, I believe so. I think with this application, there was a dramatic change in the roof line where I think our new code focused a little more on the walls of the front and whatnot. So I felt that it was enough to send the application to the board for review. It applies to the 31026D in that regard. As far as the height, I did review that today, and he does comply. It's a 30 feet mean height for a sloped roof, a pitched roof. So the mean height of 30 feet would be halfway between the top plate of the top wall to the ridge. which is 27 feet, something like that. So
And
that's,
as regards Larry's question about the solar panels,
yeah, I would ask the applicant, I guess, just to try and answer that question, and for yourselves, I think at this point, in my opinion, if you felt you wanted him to apply for that, that would make sense. If the applicant knew how many square feet the panels were now, that might help you to understand.
it's not obvious.
Yeah, it might help you to understand whether he should go or not, I don't know. Because I guess you would look at, I'm assuming, I haven't looked recently, I'm assuming those are previously approved. So they have that approval,
Well,
but it's a new roof now, so,
yeah, there would need a new approval.
I don't think it would be inappropriate to say you would have to get it approved. I guess in my mind, and it's up to the board purely, is that, with what's there, what is the, what are the criteria that he might either miss or hit, that, might possibly make it a moot point. I don't know. I don't know about that, but it's a very valid point, I feel, and I would leave that up to the board to decide that. If you felt you wanted him to do a new application for that, then I would proceed in that direction.
Well, it would seem with the new pitch of the roof, there might be issues that are concern this board, such as glare and annoyance to neighbors or stuff, because what'll happen is the reflections will be different.
Yeah, it's going to be up higher now.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Higher and more angled, so
Yeah.
it'll be more
More-
visible to
More
the,
visible from neighboring properties.
to the extent there is one. We don't know.
Okay,
All right?
great, thank you. Is there anyone here from the design review are you still on that committee? Would you like to say a few words?
I wasn't at the meeting, so I have the same materials you have, unfortunately.
Oh, okay, all right. So there's nobody here from design review. We only have their notes on this. Any, yeah.
Paul, I think, did you talk to Neil, or I don't know if Christina talked to Neil, but my understanding was what you had mentioned previously, which is, and that the applicant had mentioned, that there were some additional pieces of information that they were looking for that the applicant subsequently provided along with some revised drawings. And that on the basis of the updated information, that they were prepared to recommend that the planning board approve the application.
So before us this evening, we can take two courses of action here. One is to address the concerns of Mr. Franca about, and frankly, my concerns as well about the solar panels, and we also have just the overall project before us. So does anyone have any further thoughts here concerning the project? The raising of the roof, as they say? It sounds to me like somebody's going to throw a party or so, right? The barn roof.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'm generally supportive of the design.
Me too.
That's being proposed, and, we probably all walk down that street from time to time. I know I do several times a week, and I think this would be an improvement to what is there currently. My concerns were, and knowing some of the neighbors, one of whom was here tonight, my concerns were more around the execution of the project. And, and we had this issue, we talked about this issue in the context of the Young Vari's house on Sycamore in terms of where the construction vehicles would park. Greenfield has a lot of young families on it.
Right.
It's not a very wide street like many streets in the village are not. And the houses are all kind of, as we can see from the aerial photos, all kind of tightly packed in there. And, you know, so where would the construction vehicles park? What kind of fencing would there be around the construction site to, you know, not have it be a nuisance and not attract children on the street? How would the deliveries take place of the building materials? Where would the building materials be stored? Where would the staging of the project take place? Would it spill into and obstruct Greenfield Avenue? And then just overall timing of the project, how long?
Right.
You know, would it, because it's, you know, even though in the end, it'll be, may very well be a great improvement, there'll be a period of time where it'll be quite difficult, you know,
Be
for
disruptive.
all the disruptive to the neighbors, yeah.
So perhaps, Nick, would you like to speak to that? There are two things. One is a construction project. Do you have they haven't submitted a construction? Just a preliminary, so you haven't seen anything further than on that? In terms of timing, how long this will take? Or is the family going to live there while the work's done,
The intent would be to live there, yes.
without a roof? Or,
Well, generally, the roofs can go on pretty quickly, that's the idea, so
Yeah.
weather permitting, that roof should be on within a week. But, you know, and then, you know, the idea, if they're living there, they have to get it tight pretty
Right.
quickly. So, talking about material deliveries, you know, the delivery will come in a big truck, that will be, there's usually small trucks that will distribute the material along the front of the property, probably be carried to the backyard for safekeeping. You know, it is a substantial driveway on that property, so I imagine some of the tradesmen can park on the driveway. There's a two-car garage that will remain for the owner's use. You know, to say today that the roof will go on in a week, you know, I'm not the one building the roof, but I've seen roofs go on in a week. And, you know, lead times, I would assume that work, that significant work could be done within a month's time. And then, you know, then you have finishing work. You have like the asphalt shingles, the building paper. Eventually the house will get restuccoed. The windows, once they come in, they'll be replaced. So a lot of the existing walls they're existing. They're going to remain. So we're just resurfacing.
right.
So it's really the roof is the primary component of this project. I can't say that it, you know, that it would take less than a month or more than a month, but I think generally speaking, once they start, a month's a fair amount of time for a roof. This is not a complex roof either. It's very simple. So if that's, you know, that's, I think, is probably the best I can tell you in terms of scheduling without building it myself. But again, we tried to keep it simple because the idea is they're going to live there. So we just want this to go on quickly and not disturb them while they're there. They are new to the neighborhood. They want to, you know, just present something that fits into the neighborhood well and be good neighbors. So I know I've spoken to the client, and neighbors have called them expressing concerns about, you know, where construction vehicles will park, and he said he'll do whatever he can to accommodate that work. You know, this is the property though, so this is all he can offer. Let's say maybe he can offer different time schedules if the board sees that fit, you know, for different tradesmen to come in. But I think, generally speaking, they can keep the cars on the driveway or the trucks, keep the deliveries on the property and not in the street. And then work with the neighbors, you know, as much as possible to get this streamlined and constructed quickly.
Thank you. Yeah, construction, you know, we had that project that went through over by me on Duesenberry. That was done and they basically gutted that whole house and redid it, put on a new roof, and it went up, I don't think it took more than 6 weeks. If you have the full crew now. There's no way you can avoid the workmen's cars and trucks and whatever, you know, the cars are lined up.
And Duesenberry's even more narrow.
Yeah,
than,
yeah, it's
uh,
tough,
Greenfield.
but it went pretty, you know, with all things considered, it went pretty quickly. So the question is, you use contractors and whatnot, and your contractor will submit a work schedule, right, Paul? Yeah, sure. Go right on.
So Yeah, if part of the approval could include, a logistics plan. Some of the things that I have seen on sites that could be at least discussed is placement of dumpsters. If they could be strategically placed so they're not taking up the whole driveway. I find a lot of times that guys will be parking on the road because if they all pack in there, then they can't get out until 3 other guys move, which I understand that, but, if it can be logistically planned, then listen, number one, if they wanted to park their trucks in the back of the village hall here and then just go over together, or their cars, that's something else that could be done as well. I know another contractor wanted to put a construction fence up, and you may be aware, I was over on Pondfield, and he said, well, I'd like to put a wood fence up, which initially people were worried that this was put up and no permit, but it did help in that it just kind of buffers the whole construction dust and scene from visibility, which that may be something you might consider. It is important to probably, and it's going to be hard if the owners are living there, it'll be more difficult, but if the site is secured at night, I mean, we want to keep people out of these sites, for many different reasons. So, a construction fence of some sort, although it doesn't always look nice, or if you wanted to have them put a wood fence instead temporarily.
It seems difficult with that driveway to.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So that's another thing. I mean, I don't know what that circular part is like, but, if they wanted to fill that in, if there's no infrastructure underneath that would get damaged, then, they could use that whole area as parking area. So those are some of the things that I've seen that have been challenges. I think certainly you could add it to the approval, and if there was trouble and they, don't seem to comply, I could always, send them back to you. Hopefully it doesn't get that bad. Usually, if I go out there and I explain to them what they're doing, in that, they're impacting the neighbors in an adverse way, it's all about communication sometimes. So those are things I would consider.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, is there, at this time, I'm going to open the meeting to the public. If there's anyone from the public, neighbors, someone who would like to speak, now's your chance. Just tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Michael Ching. I live at 22 Greenfield, which faces across the street from 17. I have spoken on the phone with Michelle and Wilfredo and welcomed them to the neighborhood. We're very excited to have new neighbors. The Davis family were great, and we're hoping the new family is great. I think the design is a welcome addition. It fits more in line with the architecture of the block and will add to, I think, the charm of Greenfield. The only thing that I reinforced with Wilfredo and Michelle was Greenfield does have a lot of young children under the age of 8 that do travel up and down the block, and lots of other pedestrian traffic, people walking their dogs. And my only concern was with the trucks and the building materials swapping in and out and potentially being at the front yard, how do you make sure no wandering eyes, curious people, or children kind of get into that? And so it was more of a discussion with them, how to mitigate some of the congestion and other risks that are created within kind of an open construction site. And my only hope was finding a way to get, I didn't know whether they were planning on living in it or not, but moving some of the more unsightly things, whether that's a porta potty or construction materials, more into the back, away from the front where kids can have access to it or cause havoc. I think about the porta potty in front and teenagers and
Right.
you know where that goes. But, so I was thinking about some of more of those logistical issues was, when I spoke to them, I think they have all intention to work collaboratively, but it sounded like they had not finalized things with the contractor on how the work process would go, and so I just put in the request that they would think about some of these issues because we know the neighbors at 21 and at 25 who also went through a thorough construction and learned a little bit of a few of the tips that they did through their process to help mitigate some of the congestion, which was, really trying to get more of their vehicles onto their lot, less on the street, more of the construction materials onto the lot and into the back, away from kind of the street overflowing. So, but we're very supportive of the design and look forward to welcoming to the block.
Thank you for your comments. Paul, I have a question here. I know they're redoing the road on Greenfield in that block. What's the timetable of that being finished, or any idea, or is that a Jim Palmer question?
I think they're doing gas lines,
Yeah,
and I think they usually try and get that done before school starts.
before school
I
starts.
don't know for sure, but I think usually that's kind of what they.
And Mr. Faustini, when do you plan on beginning your construction?
My understanding is as soon as possible, actually. They wanted to start before school.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be an issue, because you got too much going on that block. And while we may approve this plan, we may have to postpone the start of the construction. And I believe we can do that.
Yeah, I can coordinate that with Jim Palmer.
Yeah, because, and I know when Jim comes back next week?
20th.
Yeah, something like that. Because, from my perspective, and I hear Mr. Ching's thoughts, and I know there are lots of kids on that block, and I know, in the old days, we played stickball on that street, so it's, there's a lot going on. The other question I had was, is there any way to put up signage, the village, or to kind of slow down traffic or mitigate, once the new road is in? I know with that heavy machinery that's there, you're not going to do anything at the moment, but
Yeah, I think I would work with Jim Palmer and coordinate that, and maybe, have the contractor supply the signage that's acceptable to him.
Yeah, because there were kids riding their bikes down the block when I came down this afternoon, so to your point, yeah.
yeah, I mean, Nick, it's not your neighborhood, right? You're just the architect, but it's a full-on neighborhood with lots of young kids running around and on little bikes, and and they're not always, they don't go straight, they're going like this. So, understood?
I do understand. Do we know when that work in the street might?
Well, that's something we'd have to coordinate on a construction plan. So if they put forth a construction timetable and a plan, that might address some of these issues.
Yeah. I can check more.
Right? And so, Larry, does that answer some of the questions you had?
It does. Although you raise an interesting point on the paving. So they were going to redo Greenfield after the gas work?
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, and I know this is probably not our issue, but I just wonder if this project is going to come right on the heels of the gas line work being done, whether it wouldn't make sense to wait the 6 months before Greenfield gets repaved again, before, the trucks start coming in, and then trash, what's done, and then all the residents on Greenfield are like, oh, this was great for the 2 weeks that it was newly paved, but now it's completely, torn up again because of all the trucks.
Yeah, and I think discussing that with Jim Palmer, that's his bill.
Nick, you're not tearing up any gas lines or anything to the street, right?
No, it seems like I see the openings in the street and the plates that are down in the street. Have they replaced the gas lines yet? Or are they just waiting to pave? I'm unaware, I'm not sure.
I think the gas line, well, I don't know how far along they are in the project. I mean, I know that we've got the metal plates out, and it looks like some of the lines have been put in, but I don't know where that stands. That's a Jim Palmer question, because these guys are working all through the village. And- Yeah, exactly. And they're supposed to be done by the end of August, so you may not be able to start work before September.
It's Con Edison, I assume? Con Edison is doing the gas line?
Yeah.
My only concern is being on Con Edison's schedule is kind of,
I get it.
It's
I
really
know.
open-ended.
Yeah. Well, but I would say that the village has been extremely forceful in dealing with Con Ed and the work that they're doing within the village, and being very specific about timeframes and is specifically where they can work at what points in time. So, as Paul's alluded to, it's the village administrator's responsibility. He probably has a better handle on it. He's on vacation until the 20th. So, yeah, that kind of would stymie your project in the short run here. I mean, you won't be able to start tomorrow.
Yeah, forgive me, I'm just thinking about our client, and, because he was hoping to start before the spring, or around spring, so, and then we found out that we had to come to the DRC and the planning board. Is it possible to do parts of the work? Like, the roof is the biggest part of this project, I think, because there is a kitchen renovation and a bath renovation that will follow. Is it possible to do any part of this before, like, the roof is probably the part that I'm asking for.
You know,
It's hard for me to make his decision.
it's hard for me to make a decision because, you know, when they do a road and the Con Ed comes in, they come in with heavy equipment. And there's heavy equipment sitting on that block right now. And I don't know if you bring in pavers and whatnot, that's, you know, I mean, that goes pretty quickly, the pavers and whatnot. But when they bring them in, what's their timetable, who knows? Yeah, it's hard to say. And I actually, in deference to the neighbors, I think it really behooves us to be cognizant of just the amount of activity that would be taking place. It's kind of unfair to your neighbors at this point in time, you know. We could probably, look, the way I would say is we could approve the project with a separate application for the solar panels. We could postpone the work until we see a construction plan that's approved through the village administrator in conjunction with what's going on with Con Ed, so that we don't overlap.
Okay.
All right? And I know that's not the best outcome for you per se, or the clients per se, but I think it's the better way to look at it for the village. Does anybody else have any comments on that?
I think you put it succinctly. That's good.
I agree.
I think it's encouraging that they're working. That means it's, and that's not, because there are probably other roads they're going to do next. They haven't even started yet. So
Sure.
Yeah, and it's very possible that the village administrator will come back and say, well, this work will be done by the first week in August. And then you can, you know, I know that's hard with contractors to schedule because they want to, you know, they have to set up their time as well. But that's why I say if you submit a construction plan to the building department, we should be able to get him an answer about when he can start. But,
I mean, it's going to take a while for the building commission to proceed as well.
Yes. Okay.
so, given what I've just said, does anyone want to propose a motion here? Jim?
I'll give it a try. I move we approve the project with the caveat that the solar panel relocation will have to be separately approved, and condition the approval on the submission of a building plan and timetable that meets the requirements set forth by Paul Taft and the village administrator.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Sorry for the delay, it's just, given the circumstances, it could be worse, believe me.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a site plan for 21 Crow's Nest Road.
Right.
Someone here from the applicant?
Good evening, Mark Gearing, representing Michael Mealy for the proposed design plan of the 21 kilowatt solar roof at 21 Crow's Nest. So last week approved at the DRC meeting.
Could you make sure you speak into the mic, because I'm having a hard time hearing what
Is that better? Oh, there.
Much better. Much better.
So, yeah, I was in a meeting last week for the DRC. We reviewed everything and looked it all over and got the approval through them to come here, so.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about solar panels, what makes them worthwhile, and how you propose to, save taxpayers' money? How does it help the rest of the people who don't have solar panels? We're subsidizing your solar panels and such and such. How long do they last?
Oh, no, but, oh.
It's here.
Oh,
I saw him have it in his hand.
got the whole thing? Yeah, you give us a little lesson here.
So basically, solar is just another form of producing energy from the sun. Most of it, if it's on a house, it is a personal gain for them. But in reality, the cost of it pretty much equals if they were to just go to like a fossil fuel to pull in that energy from a fossil fuel, because most of the energy in the United States is still fossil fuels. So the idea is, of course, to switch as many people to solar, using the sun, generate electricity, and a house like this is probably, a 21 kilowatt is probably half of its usage, maybe a little more half of its usage on a daily basis. So I know personally in my house, it's 7 kilowatts a day. So I could put half of this panel on my house and I'd produce more electricity than I would use, and the rest would get fed back into the grid. But on this unit, since it's such a large house, it's probably more equal to what he's using for his energy. Other than that, I mean, it's...
How long do solar panels last?
So your typical, they guarantee them, most of them now, for 25 years. And then after that, there's a chart, depending on the brand you buy, that the efficiency goes down so many percentage, more after a certain period of time. But just like anything, your car or anything that's made doesn't last forever.
Okay. But it looks to me like they're covering the entire house.
It is the entire front. This house is on the top of a hill on a private road.
Is it the front or the back?
Well, see, this is the thing we couldn't decide. At the DRC meeting, we officially said it was the front of the house.
Please.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it was my determination that this is the front, although it's not facing Crow's Nest. And what I have traditionally done is I will review other applications that have been approved. And if I can find on there which sides they've used as the front, I try to be consistent and stay with that. So with this one, they had a previous application that showed this as the front. know, if I looked at it otherwise, you know, it seems it's a crow's nest address, and the other side could be the front, but then we also look where is the front door. So that's how,
And Paul, is the driveway on the side, you know, it curves up from Crow's Nest, so I was
Yes.
curious which side. So even though the other side faces Crow's Nest, this is effectively the front in usage.
Where the car comes in.
This is the driveway, right?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
right, right.
But from an address perspective, the other side is the front, yeah.
And like I said, I think what really helps me to determine it, if I see something else was approved that way, I just stay with that. It may not
Okay.
make sense, but, because otherwise, then those things aren't necessarily compliant anymore. You know, it becomes very confusing.
Yeah, the whole house is surrounded by foliage also.
Do they plan on taking down any trees to get more direct light? No?
The placement they are requires no tree removal.
But are those evergreens? Won't there be seasons where the trees are not necessarily providing shelter?
Like here,
Yeah. So there will be visibility in the winter?
yes.
Understood.
But that's from Crow's Nest, right?
Yeah, that's
So you,
actually-
so you won't see the panels from that view?
Yeah, because technically.
They're on the other side, right? But you will see them, you will be able to, from the high road.
Yeah, the high road, yeah. Well, you mean,
Not from Village Lane?
From Village
Lane
Lane.
is the next.
It's lower though, I think.
But it's.
it is lower.
It's lower and it's
Yeah.
so close that I don't think you would actually see them, but further back from the high road, if you're going from Pondfield to the byway along the high road, you
Yeah.
can
See it.
see them.
Yeah.
Well, given the elevations in the village, won't any solar panels that are installed on the back of a house be visible from some other street and house in general?
Very possible.
I know if we put them on the back of our house, all the houses on the hilltop would see it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the question then becomes the glare from the sun and how they reflect. And do they reflect
Yeah, they
into?
brought that up last week and they reviewed it, and since it's at the highest ridge of the thing, they determined it wouldn't be an issue to
With the glare, yeah, no, I
surrounding
read,
houses, but could be an issue to helicopters they brought up. But
Helicopters.
They said that's not their jurisdiction or,
And where would the mechanicals go?
the mechanicals they are on, you mean the tie-in?
Yeah, so you've got all the
No.
you'll have the
Yeah.
panels on the roof, and then,
This will be the disconnect box right here. So the wires would run all under and then would go down, and then to this little thing right here is their disconnect for it, or their tie-in to the grid.
okay. So that's, this is, it's slightly anomalous. If we call the side of the house that they're putting the panels on the front, the tie-in ends up being, well, I guess that's okay, that ends up being in the back. So that's consistent with the regulation. Normally, putting them on the front of the house and not the back of the house would cause them to be more visible,
It's very unusual.
but it's
front.
slightly inverted pardon the pun, in this case, so.
yeah, well, that used to all be one property, right? Used to be with the
Number 50?
Yeah.
is- Yeah.
and they sold that off back in the
The
60s.
lots off Crow's Nest, yeah.
Yeah. So,
We did submit a letter from a neighbor also with the application.
yeah, I saw it. Doesn't really say anything, it just says.
But it also seemed like there are sort of two neighboring houses. I guess it's like 14 and 18. It seemed like it might affect the one that we didn't hear from more than the one
Yeah.
that we did. I think that's under construction, if I recall.
Were notices sent out to all the neighbors within,
Right, it's just if the house is under construction, who's the neighbor?
And-
You know.
can I ask you a question? Do you need all those solar panels for this house? Or is he just trying to become an energy center?
No, I mean, for it to become a viable solution for him, he needs the 21 kilowatt, and each panel is a certain wattage, so you need a certain amount of panels to get to your 21 kilowatt system.
But what my question is, does he need all of those to get to his 21?
Yeah, there's 56 panels on that.
57 panels?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, 57 panels, yeah, but they're the LGs. I think they're 370 watt each.
And how much does the state subsidize the construction of this?
I don't know if it's state to more than federal.
Well, it is
I-
state and federal.
Yeah, I think it's both, but I think federal is a lot more subsidized, but it's still really expensive.
In other words, it's payback, what's, not that I mean to
No,
payback.
I don't.
Are folks doing this more for the planet than for the economics?
Yeah, well, I think most people are. I would definitely do it since I use such little electricity, I personally would do it because there is an incentive where the electrical company is supposed to reimburse you for extra power you put out to the grid. So.
Yeah, they have to buy it at subsidized rates.
Yeah, so like I said, if I had half of this unit on my house, I would sell half of the electricity back and use half.
And what happens when the rest of the taxpayers begin to say they don't want to subsidize these things anymore because they're not participating?
That'll drive the cost of them down, right?
Well, I mean, it would drive the cost up of installation.
I mean, if these companies aren't selling them anymore because nobody's paying the incentives, then they're going to have to reduce their costs and keep selling them or go out of business.
Yeah, it's one of these. Yeah.
Yeah. I personally did not, so I can follow up.
Well, I would recommend you can't make a decision without that.
What's that?
The notices that supposed to be sent out to the neighbors.
Oh, if they haven't sent out the notices, no.
Yeah, I don't have them
Yeah, you'll see other applications tonight have copies of the certified.
Okay.
Well, okay, given that information, I think we can end this pretty quickly. I think what you need to do is the neighbors, what's the, 200 feet, right? Or 150 feet? Is it 400 feet in a residential?
Well, for planning.
Yeah. So they have to alert all their neighbors that they're going to do this. And they haven't done that.
I don't have that folder. Christine isn't sure. I'm texting her.
Yeah, I'm finding out from the engineer right now. But
Because I saw one letter.
Incoming, not outgoing, too, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask, in the meantime, maybe we'll get an answer on this, can I ask a question about the house itself? What year was the house built?
In the 60s.
I don't have that offhand at the moment.
Yeah, it used to be, the doctors, I forget the guy's name.
The reason why I'm asking is because we have a lot of historic houses
Yeah.
in the village, and one of the criteria under the ordinance that we need to consider when we're looking at these applications is that the installation shall not damage or obscure character-defining features such as dormers, cornices, chimneys, or roof line. And so I'm just trying to determine, we mentioned number 50 Crow's Nest, which is
one of the most historic
spectacular
houses in the
historic house in Westchester, perhaps. I mean, it was written up in
Yeah.
Westchester Magazine when it was on the market a couple of years ago. On the other hand, for a house that's not historic, not that it's, not a beautiful house in its own way, but
Yeah.
that would tend to be less of an issue than it would be for an important architectural resource of the village. So I'm just trying to get a better understanding of the
No,
lineage of the house.
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, this project was brought a year ago. But even for last week's meeting over here, I pulled up the address, and there's some YouTube videos from 2015, and it looks like the house was redone, and that's when it was last on the market, I guess. So I can't answer that. I don't have the I don't have the drawings or town hall paperwork.
Well, okay, be that as it may, we're faced with the issue. Yes, Paul, you want to speak? She received,
Oh, she did, okay.
okay.
But how many,
How many respondents?
Well, there were 3 sent out,
sounds like an awfully low,
although maybe it's just I haven't gotten all the,
hard to picture only.
Yeah, he just got back to me too. He said that he sent them out and there was a newspaper notice also.
That was, it had to be in 2 weeks ago. What's that?
9?
9 addresses?
9, okay.
And no one's showing up here tonight. This is a tricky issue for us. It's a new phenomenon. We have some houses with solar panels in the village. The ordinance has been rewritten to deal with that. There are pros and cons to the whole issue. I know there's a lot of proponents for, and there are those who are against, for aesthetic purposes, because, it definitely changes the nature of a neighborhood, especially if everybody's got these solar panels on.
Yeah.
I really, frankly, I'm not sure how long the governments are going to be able to subsidize the construction of these things. I mean, right now it's a huge push, but it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
And I think that cost is going to come into question at some point. But at the moment, those who have the ability and the excess funds to take advantage of, it's kind of I don't know. I don't want to get into too much of this because it's, so let me ask my fellow board members here. How do you feel about this particular project?
Is this, Gary, the first that we've had come across us since the new
Yes.
regs came in?
Correct.
And I'm trying to sort of parse the new regs, and I'm assuming the new regs were intended to bring some structure to the oversight of this. I don't know how it was managed before the addition of solar.
Well, I think up to the changing of the regulations, people put them on willy-nilly. There's a half dozen or so in the village.
Yeah.
And they didn't have, but now you have to come before the planning board
Yeah,
for
we
it.
had
So you're the first,
I'm the first,
you're
yeah.
the
So
first applicant. So
that was the first for the meeting last week over there too,
and we're trying to figure
two
out.
of them didn't want it at all, but one of them said we met all the requirements, so.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. We're trying to wrap our hands around this. This is
Yeah.
one issue of, changing dynamics in society, so, you know, it's new for all of us. I would say that the technology's not so new, but,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it's improved, and the costs have come down. But,
I guess, Gary, what I'm trying to say is the village could have, for instance, in its new regulations, said, we don't want solar panels, right? That's not what the village said. They said they want us to review them.
they want us to review.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And they want us to be mindful of architectural aesthetics
Yep.
and the character of the village. These are roles of the planning board in general, you know. Our job is to look at the village 25 years, 50 years in
Yeah.
advance and say, what do we want it to look like? And try and keep, so, this is the highest point, is the setback, and it meets the uniform code?
Would it be, I mean, Paul, I know you were looking at this earlier, would it be helpful to maybe walk through the requirements? Because some of them are slightly technical.
Right.
And maybe just we can tick off the ones we think are clearly satisfied, and isolate the ones where we have a little more discretion or need to exercise more judgment in terms of.
So we're looking at Article 310.22, paragraph 22, legislative intent, purpose, definitions.
Yeah.
Is that where you want to start, or where do you want to?
Yeah, on,
Or you want to start with paragraph F?
letter F,
Yeah.
I'll point out that these are roof-mounted solar panels. There are integrated panels which would replace the shingles. Those, the integrated, don't require planning approval. Those can be done as of right. And then there are pole-mounted or ground-mounted, which is sort of a little bit different path. So we're looking at the roof-mounted solar panels with equipment associated with that. And I always like to pay attention to the definitions. So you have the roof-mounted solar energy system, and the solar panels, and then we go on to number 2 is the requirements in residential zones, and so therefore number 2A2 is what applies to the roof-mounted, because it says other solar. So that's the place where that requires them to come to you for review. And then number 3 talks about the submissions requirements, which leads you to number 4. One of the requirements are that power is only to be used by the owners. I don't know, you may know better, but I think usually the power companies don't want you to be sending a lot of power back. They certainly won't give you as much money for it. So they frown on that, so I would assume they are not beyond what they can usually use, right, historically. And then if we go to 4C is the roof-mounted solar energy systems shall not extend more than 12 inches. As his submission shows, it won't be anywhere near that.
Right.
It's pretty close to the roof. Vertical projection, C3, is also not an issue because there is on his, if you look at those hatched areas, those are the areas that are required to be clear for fire access. And so therefore you have 18 inches from the ridge down, and they can't have any panels in that area because the firemen, if there was a fire in the house, they would cut that open and let it vent. So if the panel's down at 18 inches and it's not even close to 12 inches above it, then I think that section would comply. And then we go on to number 5 is the standards for review. And this includes both for the design review committee and the planning board. And so this is really the part where you want to dial down into and see, this is the part where you're looking at the application and does it comply with these areas, as well as at the same time, think about things that you may want to use as planning board rules that, you would pass a motion to create some rules that you could have and an applicant could have so they know what rules they need to adhere to in order to get approved. At this point, I really haven't thought of any of those, but I think as these applications come in, you may find that we have some valid concerns that we could address.
Well, like, for example, the first two under A1 and 2, A deals with glare, and A1 deals with glare, and A2 deals with just general visibility from neighboring properties and rights of way. So, and then mitigation techniques with respect to both of those. So, what would one do to mitigate A, glare, and B, visibility? Because these regulations suggest that measures need to be taken, all measures need to be taken. So what types of measures would one typically take?
I did look quickly at the panels that they showed in this application, and I believe it's an AR designation, and I believe what that points to is an anti-glare coating that they put on panels generally. So certainly that would be minimal to make sure they have an anti-glare coating on them. I don't know whether all of them have it or, just some of them do. So that's certainly something to look for.
So these will have anti-glare coating?
They are anti-reflective.
Anti-reflective, yes.
Okay.
As for also, last week they brought this up, and I didn't even notice too, so they thought of that, how if a house is higher than this house, if it's looking down on it, that would get a glare. And that's why they said last week, this house is up on the highest ridge, so nobody's looking down on the roof. So that's something I'll think about also moving forward,
Yes.
if a house is looking down on it.
And in terms of minimizing visibility, again, like, what do people do if there were visibility issues? Do people plant other trees or put up rows of arborvitae, or like what do?
In my experience, the biggest problem in other towns is when people can't put them on their roofs and want to put them on their property. And it's usually doesn't look as good when you got a massive panel out in your backyard, right on your neighbor's yard. So a lot of times those people, they would actually have to buy a very expensive full-grown thing to bring them in and just to cover it. That's just from experience, that's all. That's the only one I know. That was like a month and a half or 2 months ago.
Yes.
So I suppose if it was a house up above you looking down, maybe at the rear of that property line, if that's what it was, they could do some plantings, possibly. I mean, there are a lot of instances where it is pretty steep.
So how do you run an air conditioning unit at night
Maybe
with the solar panels?
not with the solar panels. Most solar panels are used when it's sunny, and then you use the grid again when it's not sunny or nighttime.
Okay.
Unless you have a storage backup. So, like I said, me personally, if I did solar panels, I would buy the battery backup. So I would use the electricity from my panels during the day while I'm charging the battery, and then at night I would just use my battery, and I would never pull in from the grid. And if there was never an issue with the grid, a 21 kilowatt battery in my house would last me almost 3 days without even sun, And that's
But that generator would be noisy for the neighbors.
Yes.
Generator would be noisy, there's no noise with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a changing energy,
Yeah, it's
So-
not my preference, so I can't afford it.
yeah. No, I understand. That's part of the issue, I think.
Getting back to this list, I think number 3, the colors and textures are a little difficult because raceways being the conduits and, electrical boxes, for their listings that they have, they aren't allowed to be painted, generally speaking. So, and I would say most of them are gray.
Yeah, gray.
So I think with a disconnect box or a panel box, that's more easily covered with plantings. So, if in this situation, you wanted to be sure that there were plantings that buffer it, of course, if it's not seen by any neighbors, I'm not sure that's necessary. That would be up to you folks.
But
Still has to adhere to the electrical code.
Yes, yeah. And like you asked, it does comply with the building code. It asks that the panels be consolidated in one area of the roof rather than scattered on multiple roofs. I think they've pretty much covered what is it, all south facing.
So it sounds like under 4, A, B, C, D those are more technical requirements. You either meet them or you don't, and it sounds like those are satisfied.
Yeah.
And then the last one, E, is that the last one? Or, it is,
E to 5.
and then do we think it damages or obscures any character-defining features such as dormers, cornices, chimneys, or roof line? I mean, it covers half the roof line, so, but the question is the roof line a character-defining feature in that house? And I think given the architecture of the house and the age of the house,
Yeah.
I think one could conclude that it's not a character-defining feature.
No.
But I can say that I don't believe I would reach the same conclusion with number 50, Crow's Nest, for example,
Exactly.
which has a very, tightly pitched.
Cathedral.
Yes,
Nice,
yes.
nice, yeah.
So I think we would struggle with that one. And then 5, we get into what side of the building, other than the collectors, which is the side of the rear, which actually it will be because we've determined that the front is where,
So you're gonna put collectors in the back, and then you're gonna have a different,
actually the collectors are in the front, as it turns out, right? The panels are the collectors, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
So the solar energy equipment is actually going to be in the back or the side.
Yeah. Over here, you said, right? That would be the back or side.
And then 6 doesn't apply because it's not ground mounted. And then 7, I think this is what you were saying, Paul, is are there other factors or criteria that we, maybe not tonight, but in the course of our work on the planning board, coming up with a list of supplemental criteria
Yeah.
beyond what's in this.
I mean, maybe it would be a great idea, maybe we can talk with the applicant, once this is in, that you folks go take a look, see what the fruits of your labor, and if there are anything that would,
well, I'd like to go back to the question of, does he need all those solar panels? Is he only using it for his own house, or does he need those to pay so he can sell some electricity to the grid?
Well, I think generally, what you could ask for in this situation is to get their electric bills, to see what their average use is. And that's pretty much how that's done, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah, every monthly bill says your average daily usage.
Yeah. And then that would tell you, okay, that more or less sizes you. Like if you were to get a NYSERDA, grant to do this, that's what they would look at. And they wouldn't they wouldn't grant you any money additional to put more panels in. It's exactly what your average use is.
Well, then we would have an idea of how many panels you actually need, rather than covering the whole roof.
Yeah. And one other part of a discussion for that would be if he has the most productive panels, because some are more efficient than others. So they cost more money, but, I did an installation where I had older panels, 24 of those panels were the same as 18 panels of the new ones that I did. And this was years ago, but so I'm sure it's ever changing, I suppose, right?
These are the top of the line LGs.
Yeah, yeah. So they are very productive, huh?
Yeah.
It's a large house, it's about 6,800 square feet.
Is it 6,800 square feet?
Yeah, it's a big house. I think it's one refrigerator alone is like almost a kilowatt.
Is that,
Just one refrigerator.
is that Hank Bloom's old house? Yeah, he was up there.
I mean, if you wanted to consider making that a condition that he provide me that information,
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
I think we should. I don't think that's unfair,
Yeah.
so we understand.
In fact, I could try to ask for that with the application, 'cause you're, yeah, yeah.
In the future?
What do you mean? You want us to approve it, and then you would get the information? Or-
It's up to you. I mean, if you felt comfortable doing that, I'd be happy to
Well-
review that and do
Paul,
that.
so my feeling is, I don't want to make a mistake
Yep.
here on a going forward basis. Since this is the first one, I'd rather see all the information in front of me before I make we make a ruling, so to speak. And because this is the first, but it won't be the last, and we want to make sure that we get the process correct. Not that we're here to block what people want to do or what but we want to get the process right, because, 25 years from now, we'll be talking about fusion. And it'll be, a whole different ballgame. Believe me, it's coming. So, and the solar panels will be obsolete, and then what do you do with all of them? You got all these houses that'll have them, and meanwhile, the people who don't have them are subsidizing the ones that do have them. And the whole thing's kind of a mess. Nobody, I don't think, has really thought it through. But in the short run, it looks good. So,
So I don't know if you have any further questions. I think that pretty much.
yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. Anybody else have any more questions?
The only comment I'd have is that the location of the house, if there is one where we're going to go, if we're going to go first, the location of this house does have some appeal, because it's sort of less infringing on neighbors than others. And so if we're going to ultimately follow through and do this, this feels like a good place to start.
I know, I agree with you. I do agree with you. But I also want to make sure that you get the process right. So if we're looking, if we can set a criteria where average daily use of electricity becomes something that's submitted on a regular basis, that helps us going forward. Would you agree?
Yes. And that does seem to be part of the consideration, because one of the rules says you can't be a net generator.
Right,
Leaving
exactly.
aside occasional sales into the grid.
Yeah.
And
So then thank you very much. So then the question before us is, do we want to approve the application with this qualification, or do we want to postpone the application and have them come back in September with the full amount of information? And what does that do to their timetable and,
Can I just ask, in response to that, can I ask the applicant, you, I think, said something about how the 21 kilowatts wouldn't even satisfy half of the need.
Is
that- do you have a-
bill? But I just did get an update. Per the electric utility connection application, you cannot produce more than 110% of your daily use. So it could be close to his, but I don't know what a 6,800 square foot house requires for electricity.
But it
I
does
am
look like
interested to know, though.
objectively, in order to get the interconnect, you're gonna be close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can have less.
Yes,
I think that's a
exactly.
cap, is what he's
Right.
referring
That's the
to.
cap.
So we're not gonna have 200% coming before us, it sounds like.
Exactly, yeah.
So do we need that information? Yes, I think we do. Can we approve the application in conjunction with that information being presented to the building department? I don't know how you guys want to go about it. What do you think?
I think I'm prepared to go on the latter.
Yeah.
Approve it subject to,
I feel like we want to get started, and we'll learn as we go, and this feels like a good one to,
it does feel, yeah.
yeah.
Are we moving in the direction of when we get the information, or, you know, going forward, let's say the next one, we get the usage information as part of the application process?
I think that's-
That we would be disinclined to approve an application to the extent that the applicant is looking for something over 100%, based on what the trustees have set out in this.
Yeah, but
these criteria.
I wouldn't be upset with 110%.
Okay, so then that, to get, if they can't be over 110% to get the interconnection permit, then I guess I agree that
That's what
we.
Paul was saying, Con
Yeah.
Ed may be doing our work for us. We're not gonna get 200% applications.
So then for this one, maybe we get the information, but we don't let not having it in front of us here and now preclude approving it if that's what we determine.
But we should ask for the information about usage.
And perhaps you
versus-
can make that part of applications.
Yeah.
You just put a check so that they give it to you up front
Yeah.
when they file the forms. Okay, all right.
But we could make it so, I guess if we do approve it, we can make it subject to confirmation that
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
more than 110%.
If I'm not comfortable with the details provided, I would refer back to you.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I feel like harder applications are going to come before us, and so getting started with this will help us
Yeah.
get ready for that.
Michael's point about this one being an isolated house and where it's located makes it a little easier from that standpoint.
Yeah.
This one I struggle with. I don't struggle with this one at all in a way. I mean, it is the first one, and I think we all have legitimate concerns about the process to make sure that we establish a good precedent. But I can see myself struggling with these going forward to the extent they are being proposed for historic structures,
Definitely.
or they're being proposed in much more visible
Yep.
locations.
Yep.
And that's why I think we need to be extremely, and your advice was good, Paul, that we need to maybe put a little more meat on the bones of what we're looking for in terms of some of these requirements that need to be satisfied. Because this is worded very generally, and it gives us a great deal of leeway, but I think, you know, if it's plantings, if it's shielding, if it's, you know, what are the character-defining structure, features that under no circumstances would we approve?
And Paul,
you know.
what I would ask is that when Christina draws up the minutes, she reflects this discussion in the minutes so that it's on record? Okay, thank you. All right.
We will get another application for 21 Greenfields
Yeah, we'll get another one
Yeah.
for 21 Greenfield, yeah.
very soon.
So, having said that, would someone like to make a motion? I think Larry made a beautiful motion right here before, so you want to repeat that? And
Okay, let's try, if I can remember. I would make a motion to approve the application as submitted, subject to receipt by the building department of evidence of electrical usage or energy usage, and confirmation in conjunction therewith that such usage does not exceed 110% of, that's not right, the reverse, that the proposed solar installation kilowatts do not exceed 110% of the average usage,
Average daily use.
daily usage.
Everybody okay with that? Well, I'm going to second that.
Go for it, Gary.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And the reason I second that is because I just wanted to say that this is my last meeting on the planning board, and it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve the village for all these years. I'm sure that the gentlemen who are here tonight and the other members of this board will follow in good stead and maintain the integrity of this board going forward. And thank you all for participating. And one more thing I would say, these men and the people on this board are all volunteers. This village is built by volunteers. So go out and volunteer for the organization of your choice. Get involved. That's what makes this community. And thank you very much.
Here's to Gary. Thank you, Gary.
Well, meeting adjourned until September 7 is our next meeting. Thank you.